compounded that by doing almost nothing but lying to young women, because that's all we do to young women. You know, we tell them that, well, first of all, that career is the most important thing in life, which there is no evidence whatsoever that that's true. If you look at standard public opinion polls, you find that 75% of people regard their family and their friends as the most important part of their lives.
Men as well.
Men as well, yes. It's the social. Well, Jesus, most careers aren't careers, they're jobs. How many bloody people have a career? And even if you have a career, what makes you think it's worth giving up a family for? What are you going to do when you're 50 and 60 and 70 and you're alone? And believe me, there's going to be plenty of people facing that. And, you know, so it's no solution. And to tell young women that their fundamental orientation in life is going to be a career is a complete lie. It's not only not true conceptually, because that isn't how people are oriented, but it's untrue demographically, because what happens to the vast majority of women, even professional women, is that when they hit their 30s, their early 30s, they cut back radically on their career commitments and start to focus on having a family. And no bloody wonder, because, well, you better get at it. That's the first thing, because 30's pushing it. And second, well, what makes you think that your job is so all-consuming and meaningful? You mostly get paid to do things that you don't want to do, which is why you get paid for them. You know, there's this tiny fraction of people who have hyper-interesting creative careers, and that they're a tremendously tiny proportion of the population. And even those people, it isn't obvious to me, have lives that are better served by their extraordinary careers than they would be served by normative family arrangements. And you need people, you need an intimate partner, you need children and grandchildren. These aren't optional. And to tell young women that that's part of the propaganda of the oppressive patriarchy, is you can hardly do them a more cruel disservice. And they will discover that when they're 30. You know, it's why why the law firms lose all their women in their 30s. They all go and take part-time jobs or work 9 to 5. They're not interested in the C-suite. Do you know how goddamn hard you have to work to be a C-suite executive? It's 80 hours a week. I know some insane men that work in the C-suite, you know, and the mystery isn't why there are few women in the C-suite. The mystery is why there are any men at all in the C-suite, because all they do is work. And they have a tremendous amount of responsibility. And you think, well, they have many millions of dollars, and they have their yachts and their freedom. And, you know, that's trust fund people, or people who are benefiting from unearned oil revenue in the Middle East, you know, the parasitical rich, let's say, who aren't productive. But most of the people who occupy themselves in business have thousands of employees that they're responsible for, and unbelievably heavy responsibilities. And they pay a huge price for that, because all they do is work. Now, some men in particular, and some women, but a fewer proportion of women, some men are wired like that, and wherever you put them, they're going to work 80 hours a week because they're hyper-conscientious, and it's in their nature. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend it as a recipe for a balanced life, even though the rest of us might be reasonably pleased that there are at least some people who are willing to do that. But to think of that as a target for ambition it's just not realistic for the vast majority of people. Who wants that? Why would you want to work 80 hours a week? It's exactly what, I know this. I worked with female lawyers for a decade, high-performing female lawyers. And all of them woke up at 29 or 30, once they'd made partner, and thought, what the hell am I doing? I'm working constantly. I mean, the salaries were very good, the level of income was very high, but they were usually married to men who also had very good incomes, because those two things tend to correlate very highly. Women generally marry men who have incomes who are higher than theirs. They're thinking, well, how about if I have a life?
Jordan, you're touching on a lot of things right now, and there's some things that I have some arguments for, but I'd like to separate a few things and try to get a few things clearer from you. And one of them is, it sounds when I hear you talking that you would be in favor for a more traditional gender role division. Is that true?
Well, no, not necessarily, but I'm certainly in favor of a more traditional familial structure. It's like, have some damn kids. What are you going to do with your life? You know, you've got
what's the difference between a more traditional familiar structure and a more traditional gender role division?
Well, you know, perhaps we can set it up so that men have the opportunity to spend more time with their kids. You know, now exactly how we're going to do that isn't obvious, because it seems to me that men are not well equipped to take care of infants under a year old. I don't see that they're good at that at all. That's been my experience and my observation. And
Your own experience?
well, no, but my observation as well. But men get better at it as the children get older, and they're perfectly capable of establishing extremely tight relationships with their kids, especially I think after they're old enough to start to engage in rough and tumble play, which starts to happen really after about 9 months. The men can really start to step in. In my view, I think that for the first year of life, of a child's life, the woman's role is to take care of the baby, and the man's role is to take care of the woman and the baby, and to step in and to stop her from becoming exhausted, and to make sure that things go smoothly. And then the couple can negotiate the roles after that and make them as egalitarian as they want or can manage.